Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So on today's episode, I'm taking a look at the path of civilization, a story of humankind. Why do we still bother with taglines when it comes to naming games? I have no idea. And if you like the t-shirt, check out the link in the description. It's from Shirt and Merch Studios, who watches the show and lends me a t-shirt every now and again. So by all means, check out their stuff. So this one is from Captain Games and designed by Fabien Gridel, and this one is the same designer who did Turing Machine, which is certainly a bit of a switch from a sort of pretty clever deduction game into something like this. But Captain Games, to be more exact, is a Belgian publisher which the person who has founded this was a co-founder of Repos Production, who you'll know from various games that I've got down here, like Seven Wonders, Architect's Duel, the normal one, Just One, Ghost Stories. You know, they've done all sorts of really cool games. And so, bit of a switch to something like this, but you know what? I'm always down for a game that's got the word civilization in it, because it is a theme I do enjoy. Very high on my anticipated Essen list. I think it was like my number 3 or 4. It was like probably the highest anticipated game I had that wasn't an expansion for Essen. Again, Civilization has that effect, but also because the limited information I had about this game was that it was a card-based Civ game, and because it had the Repos Production co-founder behind it, I thought, oh, is this going to be something like a miniature Seven Wonders? You know, maybe without the drafting, but with simultaneous turns and that? And is it going to give me that Civ theme? Well, I have played it both in multiplayer and solo form, and it's time to give my thoughts. In Path of Civilization, you build up your Civ through 9 rounds of card acquisition. The idea is that in each of these rounds there is essentially either a battle that takes place or a story event. Well, I say story, more of a challenge event, where some particular bonus will take place based on what players have done during the game. The idea is that every round plays out the same with simultaneous turns, where everybody will act at the same time in a particular phase, and the phases are very quick. What it essentially stems down to, though, is that players start off with 5 technology cards, little slips like this. In here we've just got tools, fire, hunting, tribe, and rituals. And each one has a very basic, bonus that it gives you. The bonus could be on the left-hand side of the card, which typically gives you cubes which represent people. So it could be philosophers, scribes, whoop, there goes all the cards. It could be military units, that sort of thing. The right-hand side of the card gives you bonuses to level up on technology tracks. This is what everybody has in front, a personal board where they will level up the technology tracks and use these to purchase more technology cards. But what you do each round is you have to select 4 out of the 5 cards at your disposal to place on your board and one to chuck out of the game entirely. So in this game I decide, you know what, I never really got used to fire, so I'm chucking that one out. We're going to tuck that away. But what you do with the others is that you choose 2 to place on the B section of your board, so the B bonuses are in effect, and 2 to place on the D section so that the D bonuses are in effect. And then you go through a 5-phase process where essentially everything is lettered and numbered in such a way. You've chosen your cards, you get your B bonuses, and then you spend your cubes from these various places in order to acquire, say, new buildings, like new world wonders, new characters, new like leaders of civilization, and also to get other bonuses and such, and possibly to level up on the Philosophers board. And then you go through the D section of the cards here to level up on the technology tracks and buy a new technology. These technologies come in 5 different colors to match the various things you've got. So I've just got several on show here. We've got like the the religious technologies like devotion and sacred text. You've got the military like the A-bomb and artillery. You've got some more sort of like mathematician style things, like the sciencey ones like mathematics and the internet, and so on and so forth. And there's 5 of the colors. I think the other one's buried underneath one of the trays here. Once you have purchased a card, you essentially then now have 5 cards for the next round. So the one that you've just bought, let's say I bought Sacred Text, and these 4 come back to your hand, and for the second round, you now have to decide out of these new 5 cards which one to get rid of. So you know what, I'm done with tools now. Tools is gone, so now I'm going to put hunting and rituals here, and then I'm going to put sacred text and tribe there. And this is essentially how each round goes on. You go through the different phases of each round in sequence, but after round 3, you then have to resolve either the challenge event, which usually involves giving a bonus at the top and then a potential chance to get victory points at the bottom, or you have to face off in a battle, which is essentially just a case of comparing your military strength to everybody and seeing who comes first, second, third, and fourth, and getting a respective bonus there. Once you have gone through 9 rounds of this, you simply total up the victory points from various sources, like your philosophy track, from the technology cards you've got, from what units and buildings and characters you've acquired, and of course, the one with the most. Of course! So the obvious question, is this basically a Meteor 7 Wonders? Not really. I mean, yes, they are both card civ games. You know, they're civilization games that use cards in order to facilitate what the theme is. But in 7 Wonders, it's all about drafting. Here, you don't do any drafting. You have your free reign over what to buy, except you might go up against other players if you want particular buildings or characters. But aside from the fact that they both use cards and there's a lot of iconography around the place, that's kind of the only similarity with 7 Wonders.
You're a man, I'm a woman. We're just too different.
To try and compare it to other civilization games, most civ games tend to give you a map. I mean, Clash of Cultures, the Sid Meier civilization games, the actual civilization game, you know, they all have a map of sorts, and here there is no map. It is entirely based on the cards that you use and the cards that you acquire. So probably the closest thing I can think of is something like maybe like Trade on the Tigris that I played recently. It was what was the publisher again? From TMG, and essentially that one had you building up a Sid, but you were trading cards with other players, but those cards were the technologies, the people, like the various things that you had, and so you built up a civilization, but it was entirely card based with no map. It had tracks that you leveled up and various things like that. So that's kind of a similar vibe in the sense that you are just using cards with a abstracted Sid theme with no map, but the mechanism of choosing your technologies and how you get the bonuses here is still quite unique to this game and does set it apart from a lot of other Civ games out there. So probably my favorite aspect of this game is that selection process I mentioned in the overview. This whole case of choosing 5 cards. It's a simple concept. I've got 5 cards, gotta pick 4 of them. But it's not as simple as that. It never is, because not only have you got to decide, right, well, which ones do I want for the B bonuses? Now, in your first few technologies, you have no B bonuses, so the first couple of turns are going to be pretty straightforward. But you then have to think, well, hang on, which technology increases do I want? Because this is going to set the building blocks for your Civ. You know, if I decide I want rituals and hunting on that side, I'm going to get a decent amount of religious and military techs early. But that means I'm going to not get any science ones or any engineering ones or any people ones or whatever the green ones are called. I don't know. I forget what the green ones are called. They're like tyranny and democracy. So I guess they're political or population based. But that's the thing. If I decide I want these technology increases first, then I'm foregoing the use of these. And you've got to get rid of one. So I have to decide, well, which one am I never going to level up anytime soon? You know what? I'm not going to level up tools. I'm just going to get that one out on my first turn. Well, now I don't have the means to get any of the tool techs. So this turn angst that you have with choosing these cards, you know, 4 out of 5, not just what side they're going to go on, but what's going to go out of the game, is really good. It's that good amount of like, oh, I don't know, what do I want to do with these cards? I want to do this, but I also want to do this. And it gets harder and harder as the game goes on, because when you get the shinier technology cards, they have bonuses on both sides. So if I take the electricity here, well, if I place it on the D side, I get a lot of increases in the green and blue technologies, religious and people ones. But then if I put it on the B side, I get a couple of scribes and 1 philosopher. Do I want that instead? Which one do I stick it on? And it's just a great little decision. And you've got to do this 9 times in the game. And each time you do it, it feels like a tense way to go. And I really enjoy it for that. The length is also curtailed to a good amount as well due to the simultaneous turns. This can go up to 5 players. And you know what I tend to say on this front?
5 is right out.
Exactly, but here, 5 players actually doesn't feel that bad. I mean, granted, I'd probably rather play it with less just because, you know, you've got less chance of that slow player and it's less to set up on the table. But if somebody wanted to play this and there was 5 of us, I'd actually be like, Well, yeah, I know it will still only take about a couple of hours to play because everything is simultaneous, and everything is not only simultaneous, but it's also easy to learn. The rules to this game are pretty straightforward. It does not take long to go through. In fact, you could probably learn this from the rulebook in quick enough time. It really is that simple for a midweight game, and everything is clearly laid out on your board as to what phases are what. So A phase, pick your cards, okay, cool. B phase, resolve the B bonuses. Well, where are my B bonuses? Well, there's two big fat letters here with B on them to say there's the bonuses, as well as your advisor that you might get in the middle. Great. C phase, 3 little bits. Right, first, deal with this. Right, next, deal with the buildings here. Right, after that, deal with the people. Right, acquire those. And, you know, again, that's right on your board. D side, right, technologies, right, well, there's the D bit, read it. And everything is just clearly laid out. As long as you understand what the iconography is, which again is not particularly complex iconography here, the game is a breeze to learn and pretty smooth to play. It doesn't feel clunky in any way, shape or form. If I'm here teaching a game, I'm directing us through the phases A, B, C, D and E, and everybody is going at their own pace, and unless you've got that one person who can really take forever with that whole choosing of the 4 technology cards, it's not likely you're going to have anybody really AP in this and hold the game up. It keeps everything going smooth, it keeps it not going too long, because I think if it went above 2 hours, I think I'd consider that way too long for this game. And that's with 5 players, like I said. You can get a game of this done in less than an hour if you play it solo, more on that later, but you know, you play this with 3, 4 players. I mean, 90 minutes is not an unusual time frame to get this done, and once people kind of get the gist of how this works. Paths to victory are also reasonably plentiful, not like crazy plentiful, but you've already got 5 technology tracks that you can kind of focus on, and they sort of link into each other. Like if you've got the blue one, it tends to link into the red and the orange next door to it. If you take the red text, they tend to link into the engineering and the blue one like next door to them. So there is a little bit of an overlap, and you probably should not like go across, you should not, if you've got like a science tech, you should not jump straight into military, because they're probably not going to link as well. But yeah, those are easy things to do. But just focusing on one of those 5 colours alone is an interesting path to victory. But you could still diversify into a couple. The buildings that come out, you know, which buildings come out early, these cool bonuses that they give you and what colours they are, they're going to shape what path to victory you do. The people, you know, if you get a person who gives you bonuses in the B and D phase, that's great. But these people can also give you bonuses based on whether they're alive or dead. Like you replace a leader and it goes away, but it still gives you a bonus. You might want to get that into play nice and quick. The Philosophers track can give you bonuses if you want to level up on that aspect of the game. It's pretty basic and generic, but you know, it's the case that you get these new bonuses and it's another way to score points. But the real sense of variety, and probably one of my favorite bits here, is these end of round cards. Basically you have these little standees. I'm not going to get them out. First couple of rounds, nothing happens. So what do you put on those? A reference card to say what cards come out in each round, as well as the reference card for the phases. That's a neat idea. If you're not going to do anything funky in the first 2 rounds, then put something useful out, and I think that's really cool. But then these like red battles here, so these will go on the red standees, so you'll know what battles are coming up. But then the yellow ones, there's a lot of them in here. I mean, they're numbered for specific rounds, so you can't have them completely random. But you know, here's my one of my random choices for here, Archimedes. So that's my challenge for 3rd round, and I need one for 5. Okay, totally random, and I get Distillation. Right, well, I've just picked up 2 cards that give benefits for having orange cards. So we're talking orange technologies, orange buildings, you know, orange like people and stuff. So collect a lot of orange, you'll get cool bonuses. That's 2 out of the, I think, what was it, 3, 5, 7 and 9. So yeah, you're going to have 4 of these out. Well, already half of them are based on orange. If I pick another orange out in my random selection, that's going to make orange text very highly sought after, as well as the cards. You may go for that, or you may choose to ignore it. But if they're more spread out, you might be thinking, well, early on, red's important, but maybe I'll play the long game and go into green, because green later on is going to score a decent amount of points, but I'm not going to get much early on. And so, you know, these cards alone can shape how the game will play and what sort of thing you do. So if you don't like playing this with other people, you can play it solo. And just to sort of reiterate what I was saying about easy rules, these may look like fat rule books, but this is the normal rule book. This is a glossary for everything that's in the game. So there should be no FAQ moments after this, but this is big writing, lots of pictorial examples. It's a very easy to follow rule book. Solo rule book is literally this. That's it. And the back of it is the setup. So the solo mode is dead simple. You essentially play against an AI, which, here we go. They have their own board, and you select a few challenge cards to be the victory point target for the game. So you add them all up, and that's how many VPs you've got to beat after the 9 turns. But they have their own priority system, which is essentially how, well, we'll get onto it in more detail, but it's basically how you beat tiebreakers. And they might have a special ability with standard and expert difficulty sides. But what you do is that you select your challenge cards based on how difficult you want the game to be. So you can make it really easy, really hard at your discretion. But these cards will dictate when the AI takes cards from the display, when they level up on the philosophy track. So you've got to kind of go up against them, and sometimes they might be really hyper aggressive on the blue track but not care too much about military, that sort of thing. And you essentially just play the game exactly as you were, just occasionally taking stuff out of the game for the AI and, you know, messing around with their priorities. But that's it. That's basically the solo game. You just do exactly what you did in the multiplayer game and try and beat the target score, which is entirely set by difficulty. It's a great solo mode. If you enjoy the mechanisms of this game, choosing the text, choosing a different path to victory, dealing with the past, if all of that is great for you, the solo mode's going to be fantastic. And it's not, you know, the AI doesn't do funky, weird rules or anything. There's like a couple of minor things you have to do for it each turn. And that's basically it. It's super simple to pilot, and you can get the game done in probably about an hour if you know what you're doing. If you're not thinking too hard about your turn, an hour should be all the solo game will take, and there's not a huge amount to set up, except for possibly having to get the 9 cards on these standees. That takes a little while, and maybe shuffling up the buildings. Alright, let's tackle the elephant in the room. Some people don't care about this, some people do, and I've already said my thoughts on this. This game actively uses AI art, and in terms of its components and aesthetics, this is not a cheap game. I mean, this was selling for €75 at Essen, okay? €75. This isn't even a review copy. I had to pay my own money for this. And the cost for this game is pretty insane, I think, for what you get in here. I mean, you've got a cool few trays and some of these little standees and stuff, and, you know, some dual layer like technology boards and that. But other than that, everything is kind of basic. I mean, the cards are basic quality. The trays are essentially like, you know, vacuum formed plastic. These boards are nothing to shout about. You know, these dual layer things are just so to hold the markers. The cards are pretty small. You know, you're using cubes for people. There's no miniatures or anything like that, or even meeples, frankly, apart from a couple that you use to measure on tracks. The game is pretty basic in terms of what you get in the box. And even then, for a box this big, you don't actually get a lot of stuff in here. I mean, most of the box size is to get to fit these giant rule books and maybe to fit a few of these boards. What you see here is mostly what you get, except that you've just got a few extra, you know, like players worth and a few victory point tokens. But this is all the insert is. It's just a basic setup. And so for €75, I would have kind of expected a bit more in terms of production quality. But the AI art, yes, they do mention about the AI art, and they have specifically written on the back, I quote here, okay, image banks, artificial intelligence generations, blah, 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 blah,
have been used as working elements in the design or development of certain graphical and textual aspects of the game. The elements of this game are not the result of a simple request to an artificial intelligence. Instead, they are the product of an artistic direction process that includes compositing, editing, and careful retouching by real humans with real bits of neurons.
That is literally what is quoted on the back of the rulebook.
There's a police station, fire station, restaurant, service station, and more.
Does it look good? Well, yes and no. I mean, it kind of looks fine. I mean, the card art that you have for these technologies is pretty decent. There's some decent art on, you know, some of the challenge cards. The battles are basic, the references are basic, and even your board. I mean, it's got an okay picture in the background, but nothing to sing home about. So it's not that the art looks bad, but it's kind of basic, and it is AI generated, so I can't give extra brownie points for the fact that there isn't like an artist behind the paintbrush, shall we say, like making this look good. Now, as much as I mentioned about simultaneous turns and that cool aspect of the game, interaction is still pretty much non-existent. You don't really care what other players are doing, other than the fact that they might go for a color card that you want. That's basically it. I said the solo mode was great, and honestly, this game probably will get played solo more than it will get played multiplayer by people, because there's just not a real necessity to have other players in the game. Now, that being said, unlike some other games that are like this one doesn't extend its time length by crazy amounts, still having multiplayer in, but really, the only time you actually interact with another player is in Phase C, when you have to decide what buildings and things you want. You basically put your cubes out if they're available on the card to say, I fancy to get Big Ben, or I want to get Archimedes, or whatever. And so, if anybody else at that point. If they are wanting the same card as you, you simply look at the top of your board, it's got a priority thing, and that breaks the tiebreaker. Nice simple rule, so I'll give it that. But that's it. That's your interaction. I mean, even in the combat, you are trying to beat other players on this combat track based on the battle. So, the NPC is rating 13. I can get 9, 6 free, 1 victory points for first, second, third, or fourth. It's like the Dune Imperium combat, basically. And so I look at where I am on this track relative to the other players, and that's what I get. That's it. That is your total interaction in the game, and you're slightly racing on the Philosophers track if you're going down that route.
Will you guys? I'm going home.
The game arc is also a little bit disjointed and weird in places. I mean, I said you play through 9 rounds, but the first 2, 3 rounds, I would say, like a good third of the game, goes by at lightning speed compared to the later rounds because you've got more to do. But also, the first couple of rounds, you feel like nothing has happened at all because you've got the most basic of technologies to begin with. You have no ability to buy any buildings and stuff. You won't physically have enough cubes even with the starting setup boosts. So your first couple of rounds are literally just to play some cards out, level up a little bit, and get a technology at level 1 for a couple of things. That's literally it. There's nothing else that you get from this. And so you're going to be thinking, particularly if you're a new player, that the first 3 rounds are like, oh, is this it? It doesn't feel like much. Now, it does ramp up, and by the time you get to the middle and late game, you're doing a lot more each round because you're getting a lot more bonuses and considering more options. But yeah, the game arc is a little bit weird, disjointed like that. There's also the occasional swingy element that, not from the challenge cards, you know what's coming up and when, so that's cool. But there are occasional times with the buildings and the characters, because you don't use all of these, you might be gunning for specific colors or specific types of things, and they just don't come out. Particularly with regards to the later ones, the age-free cards, which tend to give you endgame scoring based on something you're already doing. I mean, here's one here. So the Apollo program. So I get 4 points plus 2 for every orange science technology card I have. Okay, cool. I wasn't going for orange technology cards though. I didn't know that was going to appear until when? I mean, if I'm playing a 2-player game here, age-free buildings don't appear until round 7. So it's not until pretty much the game has ended before I know that orange was a good thing to go for. And so that can be a bit annoying when you get these level 3 buildings and characters later that score a lot of points for a particular thing, and it just didn't happen to be the thing that you were going for, but for someone else it is. So fantastic. Of course, this does depend on you actually having enough cubes to actually buy the things, but given that it can take a lot of effort to get a lot of building cubes or a lot of diplomat cubes in order to buy these things, if you've gone and focused hard into that, expecting a good reward, and then the reward doesn't turn up, that can be a little annoying. Now, there are some which are just flat points, so if there isn't one that scales that you like, the flat points are still pretty good, but, there is that little minor element, just be aware. So, my most anticipated non-expansion game from Essen, has it done the job? For the most part, yes, but not quite as amazing, blow my mind as I was kind of hoping. This is a really good game, a great game, but it does have a few little niggles that do get in the way. I do wish that aesthetically it was much better, particularly for that price point. I mean, you're already cutting corners by using AI art, and yet it's still a €75 game. I hope that when this comes out on retail, that the price will be reduced quite considerably, because I do think for that price point, it's not quite bang for your buck here. But you are still getting a fun card-based game with an abstracted Civ theme. I do wish the theme was a little bit better, and I do wish there was more player interaction rather than just, occasionally you take a card from me. I mean, it's a Civ game. It's just right for that kind of thing. But, I do love the fact that this is a very smooth and sleek game. It plays easily with up to 5 players, in less than 2 hours, which is a great time frame for a game of this nature. The solo mode, really smooth, really easy to operate, and gives you the same feeling as a multiplayer game with lots of different ways to tailor the difficulty in the AI behavior. So brilliant, fantastic. I love the variety with these cards. So how these cards come out, I mean, the battles themselves maybe won't change too much of your strategy, but these particular challenge cards can be pretty sweet. I like the fact that they really do sort of make you think, maybe I will focus on this color this time, or maybe I'll just ignore that card, try that card later. It allows you to pick your battles. Certainly these scenes are a little bit on the whatever side. I mean, you know, the technologies only go up to a point, and certainly the Philosopher's track is nothing to really write home about. It's just basically a track, a glorified track. But, you know, the buildings and the characters can get you some cool combinations. And really, I think like the main kind of focus point of the game is how these technology cards work. So I like that it ramps up to a point where you're really getting a lot of stuff and your Civ feels different enough from other players that's like, yeah, I'm doing really well on the buildings front. This is my thing. You can do the Philosopher stuff if you like. But the turn angst of having to choose these cards, like, I'll put 2 here, 2 there. I don't want to get rid of this though. Maybe I'll do this instead. Maybe that instead. Maybe that instead. I don't know. You know, that's a great feeling to have in the game, and it's just, it gives you that good sense of turn angst every round, even at the start and even at the end. You're constantly going to be trying to think, oh, which way do I do this? Which way do I do this? And that's always a good feeling to have. So there's a lot going for it. A lot of good things that I've enjoyed with this, and it's definitely a keeper for me. Just not quite the amazing game I was expecting. Not like the blow my mind, oh my god, this is amazing. There's a few little problems that take it out of that category, and so I'm gonna give this a decent, strong 8 out of 10. I have enjoyed my time with this, and it's definitely one that I'm gonna hang on to. I particularly like the fact that I can play this solo in a relatively quick time and try out different leaders and different combinations. But if I want to bring this to a game night, it's an easy one for me to teach and direct people through because of how, you know, well laid out the turn sequences are, and how simultaneous, you know, how truly simultaneous the turns are, and how the downtime is mitigated. Biggest issue, probably trying to get it on the table, because you've obviously got to have your boards and this, and then you've got to have somewhere for the trays, and then you've got to somehow find 9 places for these things to go. It can be a little bit fiddly in that respect, but a strong 8 out of 10. It works at pretty much most player counts, although obviously I'd probably, for the lack of interaction, you might as well play this with, say, 2-3 players rather than 4 or 5, but the fact that you can play it with 4 or 5 means that this can cater for a lot of different players. So 8 out of 10, I've really enjoyed my time with it. I'd like to see an expansion maybe dress some of it up a bit, or, you know, fix 1 or 2 of the little niggling problems, or maybe just add more variety. But so far, first game that they've produced, not bad. Not bad at all.
We are reasonably satisfied with the events we have seen.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live there. Follow the link in the description and add the thumbs. Let's get it in the hot review section and make it stand out on the page. If you like this review, then you'll be wanting to check out all the other Essen reviews I've done. So many. Oh god, so many, and there's so many more to come, but hopefully you've been enjoying them and getting some ideas as to what sort of games you want to get hold of once these start hitting more of a retail market. And obviously don't forget to check out other content before the Essen reviews, such as the shelf by shelf Keeple Cull reviews, my best of the month. That reminds me, I've got to get one done for October, better get that one done soon, and top 10s, which, as I know I haven't been doing many of them lately, they will resume soon once I'm done with reviewing a lot of games. So take care, and remember, regardless of which of your 5 cards you're going to get rid of at the start of the game, I still can't decide. It's still only a game. So bye for now, and take care.